Welcome to the January 28th OpenZFS production user call. We have Andrew, Philip, Stu, Daniel, Jan, and myself, Michael. And with two successful Portland OpenZFS summits under my belt, I've been wondering about two-day events that branch out from the production user calls, perhaps including jails and zones, perhaps event planning, perhaps Beehive, but there have been some Beehive cons. And we had a great discussion before the recording about other topics, notably 3D printing, engraving, and other nifty things that have made huge progress this last 10 to 15 years. So we've sort of hovered around the notion of something like a day of training on the popular open source tools and then having a very hands-on workshop the next day. And bless your heart, Stu, you pointed out that some tools do not like writing to certain shares backed by ZFS. So you brought it on topic like a champ. So on topic, Philip, you, uh, for reasons that you will share, would love to know what Linux distribution is optimal for trying OpenZFS. What is your use case and what have you tried so far?
Well, obviously, since I've been on the other calls, I think most of you know I generally will use FreeBSD for anything I can, but I'm working on some embedded projects, and the Segur J-Link and ST Micro things to be able to communicate with embedded things just don't work with FreeBSD at this point, and I don't have the skills and time to figure out why. So the easiest option is running Linux. Well, the Linux I've generally used is Debian, and it doesn't automatically install ZFS on root. So I was wondering if there was a fairly mainstream Linux as of today that would work for doing the embedded work uh, and be able to fit into uh, the ZFS backup routine for backup and restore, because I've been trying to move everything to just having Zelta to pull all the backups from all the devices so I don't have to think too hard. So if I ever needed to restore anything, I can use one common process.
So
And
Debian 13 can do ZFS on root.
okay,
Easily or through a long, long weekend?
Pretty easily.
Okay.
I could.
In
Oh, sorry.
Proxmox, which is based on or lives on top of Debian, does that by default.
Yes, it does.
I can also say that on the one Linux machine I have set up, I'm using Cache. I didn't do it this way, but it will install ZFS in its installer. So
As
that the
a boot device or as what?
yes,
Okay.
as a
Oh,
boot device.
you said Cache?
Cache OS. Yep.
How's that spelled?
Cache is in
Dollars or K?
CHE.
memory,
Oh,
and it's
Cache.
let me
CACHE.
Cache OS. I hadn't
let
heard
me
of
look
it.
it up.
So so honestly,
CACHYOS. I guess I'm
Ah,
wrong.
there you go.
oh, and the
So
looks like
yeah, so honestly, Philip, it's
I'm
you've got your Debian channel or your Red Hat channel.
yeah, and I think
That's a religious argument.
hmm.
You'll know where we live based on what we already talked about. But
Cat
that's you know it can be done. It's how much effort you want to put in.
Cache
What
is an
about
odd man
Rocky?
out because
Oh,
I was going to say Cache is an odd man out because it comes from what is it, Arch,
oh,
Yeah.
okay.
and it is a rolling distro, so it may not be useful for your purposes.
and I want something boring, which is why I've generally used Debian when I have needed to do a Linux install for things, uh, just because it's you know stable and boring.
Yep, I understand. I just know that that one I've installed on a personal rig that is unimportant, so I don't care as much. And
Has
It had
anyone tried
ZFS.
Rocky with
Yes.
ZFS? And
Yes.
will it do without too much trouble root on ZFS?
I have not tried that, but so my my Linux distros are based upon what applications are being tied to it.
Fair enough.
So we have a vendor that, started off on CentOS, moved to Arch. That's all they can do. It'll run on any Linux, but that's the one where they will support it.
You said from
So
CentOS to Arch?
yeah,
Oh, interesting.
I
Okay.
thought
and then
CentOS.
and then went back to Alma. So it's one of those, they don't know what they want to do. They don't know what they want to be when they grow up either.
Ha.
Yeah.
So now they're on Alma, and
Okay.
which is CentOS with
CentOS-ish.
yeah,
CentOS adjacent.
yeah. It's
Isn't Alma
CentOS being CentOS.
Hmm.
isn't Alma what CentOS used to be
Yes.
before they got purchased?
Yep.
Same with
So
Rocky, but Rocky came up on a recent call where Hazam had some really good results on using Rocky with rc.local and simply starting up things that didn't need systemd, and it worked perfectly for his CI. It was like he described it as flawless. So that was encouraging.
but again, that's I have my default is obviously
Hmm.
is Debian.
Cool.
I can do any of the other ones, but it's based upon what the vendors that the applications are running on. If I have full control of the application, there's no question.
Got it.
If I don't have full control of the application, or it needs something beyond, hey, I'm a DHCP server
Yeah.
type of thing, that's where you get into the limited limits of drivers and that kind of crap.
I can't help but notice that Ubuntu shipped or ships with OpenZFS in the installer en route, and not one of you have mentioned it.
Because Ubuntu 24 is an abomination, and 26 is going to completely destroy the company.
Their company or yours?
There's
Okay.
When I thought Ubuntu removed ZFS on root at some point
I don't know.
recently.
That's worth validating. So it's now on Bcachefs natively? Lol. Huh. Okay, well, they're off the table. So if one were to be like y'all looking in the mirror and Debian is quite attractive, where do you turn to for documentation? On the OpenZFS wiki, on Joe's or Jane's script off GitHub, or what?
ArchWiki is pretty good.
yeah.
It's good for all other OSs, including the BSDs. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's
Arch,
that. But what about, is there
ArchWiki is
like,
pretty darn impressive, and twice as much if you're on Arch or an Arch-derived distro,
okay.
which is probably the most compelling argument for anything Arch or Arch adjacent.
That's funny. But so still, Stu, you sit down at Debian, you just know it by muscle memory, or you run a script you've downloaded, or how do you get from point A to point B?
I've got my scripts. I mean, that's my build process it's literally a network boot and
Oh,
builds it on
okay.
the fly.
Got it.
I just use
Cool.
the cloud image and install ZFS. But I mostly use it for testing because for my Docker hosts I just use Alpine. But for ZFS on Linux, I use the Debian cloud images, and you can hatch them in 10 seconds. They're really nice.
Do they have CFS out of the box, or you got all the packages?
You install the
Yeah,
package,
fine.
but
Okay.
so it's not whatever. I mean, I basically just have decided that for Linux, I'm not going to worry too much about boot and root, just because
Heresy.
just
Get off the call.
yeah. Well, I mean, depend if your host or if
Heresy.
it's if its host is cattle, then you don't have
Yeah.
to worry too much about it. And I mean, honestly, you can make a mirror with just about anything. You won't need ZFS for your data, and if it's a machine that you anticipate shooting in the head at some point, then I don't worry too much about ZFS on. I mean, it's so amazingly nice to have, but that's what FreeBSD and Lumos are for.
Well, and the VM image, I trust, is terminating on ZFS either way, right?
But I mean, it goes back to
Right.
protecting what's valuable is where the
Yeah.
ZFS
Fair
effort
enough.
should be.
Yeah, that's also where I am. I don't care that much about boot volumes. I mean, I do run ZFS mirrors on all my Lumos stuff, but for Linux,
Yeah,
no.
if an OS disk goes away, I don't care. My
Cool.
data is
I'll,
protected.
yeah, my data's sitting on another machine anyway. I don't care.
Okay.
That is protected. And
Philip, are those
Yeah.
useful answers?
Yeah, I think that the key thing, I think, because this is a notebook computer that I'm using, as long as the home drive in my case is going to be on ZFS, I can easily back up that important part.
Hmm.
And the boot drive, which even though it's the same physical, you know, uh, memory chip thing, uh, even though that is can get lost, I can still easily back up my home drive to the ZFS pool elsewhere and recover it when needed. I mean, that's really the key thing, that I want to make it as easy as possible to not lose stuff that's important to me.
So for a personal machine, I think Arch is probably the choice, right? Just because
Well,
drivers and stuff like that.
And the wiki.
well,
So one of the problems with Arch is that yes, they have this tiny curated package set, but everything else is in our, which is kind of a decentralized ports tree. So it's kind of nice because you can get everything, but you have to actually read stuff because there's always a few malicious ones around. Just because they don't have this centralized trust where someone with a commitment has to audit it before it goes in. The other
AUR is
problem,
a bit of a wild west.
yeah,
Mhm.
by
Yeah.
design, which
Yeah, by
it's
design.
supposed to be. The other thing is that Arch, what makes Arch so useful to everyone and not just Arch users, especially their documentation, is that they just ship stuff as is, so they don't patch it to death, unlike certain dispos. Again, um, and just instead you have just the barely modified code package, which is nice, but they push it to the extreme with rolling release and just yeah, sometimes you will get a kernel, for example, before ZFS supports it. So you have to pick the right kernel package so that you won't find yourself with an incompatible two new kernel for which ZFS does not yet have workarounds against the latest hostile VFS RP changes.
I'll admit that I've been through some of that stuff that was years ago when I've had like trouble with that. But
But the nice thing is, the Arch community has documented which kernel you want. So you pick your long-term support kernel, and unless you have the latest laptop, it will just work on anything you want in production, except for maybe your personal workstation.
and your
That
drivers will
is,
work.
yeah, exactly. It will not break with every update. You just get bug fixes for your LTS kernel, and yeah, that is. I think they even have boot environment support. So yeah, at least I've seen someone that's using it in a way which they had some script which does boot environment management. Don't know if it's packaged or if it's some custom stuff. But yeah,
Daniel, you were saying?
the problem with Arch is that it's very much not a stable long-term platform.
I think I
It
got
will
all my words out.
always,
Yeah, which is why Ubuntu and snaps are the exact same problem.
yeah, Snap has a bunch of other problems too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But from a
So
stability
brain damaged,
standpoint,
it's not even funny.
yes, agreed.
And especially tying your container format to a specific distro and so on. Yeah, you have Snap, you have Flatpak. Yeah, and people collect their dependencies, put them into a flat Webpack or whatever, and then don't care about updating them because, hey, my application works now. Yes, but your OpenSSL is end of life for 3 years. Uh, but it works.
So I
So,
found the official Arch Linux package search and the AUR one, or that, whatever that stands for. And if I search for OpenZFS with camel case or not, I get only an IOStat thing in AUR. I'm not seeing packages. Is this a bad week for them? Would I have to choose architecture? Let's see. Any search failing. Arch on ZFS. Thanks for the wiki link. Copy. Huh. Well, feel free to show a great list of Arch packages for ZFS, but I'm not OpenZFS, but I'm not finding them. Hmm.
AUR stands for Arch User Repository,
Oh,
which
okay.
is why it's the Wild West.
Hmm.
Very
Unlike the
sophisticated.
civilized East, yes, yes, Easterner. Uh, Other Linux topics related to OpenZFS specifically, ideally. Cool. Other topics. Well, that was easy.
I mean, I'm calling I'm calling for beta testers if there
Of what,
are any.
Daniel? Of what?
Zelta 1.1,
Oh, no
which
way.
is which is
Daniel,
I'll let him
looking at
finish.
a yeah,
Uh,
just trying to do a real release. I'm doing all the multi-OS final testing. So FreeBSD to Illumos, Illumos to FreeBSD, Illumos to Debian, Debian to everything. Um, so we're working hard. I'm trying to make it the, best UX, for lack of a better word, or just be a recovery tool and get out of my face. That's what I'm trying to do.
Sweet.
Um, so yeah, it's clean, it's better documentation, more polished, fewer bugs, backward compatibility. Oh, and and the big one, you do not have to install it. It is
um,
agentless. It's fully agentless.
Wow. Okay.
Nice.
Daniel,
Sign me up.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
yes,
have a
sir.
question. When
Yes.
using Zelta, what would you recommend to use to thin out old snapshots?
This is everybody's favorite question.
Yeah, well,
There is
That's
Zelta Prune is a new feature that came up, which identifies a retention policy based on its relationship with actual live backups. So you cannot delete anything that does not exist elsewhere. Obviously, we need another tool to then thin your backup server that will be called zprune or something like that, which will be a separate package that has a local policy. Um, based on metadata rather than snapshot name. So that'll be the differentiator there, is that snapshots are created for the purpose of not just time, but also for replication status and so on. And the snapshot name paradigm I find to be unnecessary because there's already a create time. There's already a birth time for every snapshot you
Um,
have. So
the
okay.
argument is you want it in the name so that you can easily see it. Because what else are you going? You don't. The name of the snapshot has to be unique, and if you periodically create them, let's say hourly, you want something like hourly dash timestamp because
absolutely. Yes,
and that's what has to go into the name. And there's
I
no reason
agree.
why you should use Unix epoch seconds. You can just use a human readable date in a date
Right. And
format
and
which
by
sorts well. And
yeah,
then
and creation date will also appear in a much more readable date format if you want one. So I'm just saying that is not the key piece of metadata information that, or it's not the only decision-making process by which you need to clean something up. Also, people try to
Yeah.
shove retention policies in the snapshot name, which doesn't really make that much sense because you have different retention policies based on the use of the use of the data. Like you probably want to have an aggressive retention policy where you have 0 snapshots or a few snapshots on a production server that needs a lot of space open on Flash, and you need a relaxed retention policy on backup servers because they're backup servers. So, like
My opinion, you want the production system to do frequent snapshots, then have something pull those off the system, and then you slowly
right,
thin them out with time on the backup server, and you rotate through them quickly on your production system.
agreed. That is exactly, yeah, of course. That's
But
right. But there could be reasons to have different policies. So your mirror might have a differently delayed policy than your
of
primary, and you
course,
might
and
have,
that's a
yeah.
great
So
argument why the retention policy, like you don't want what ZFS Snapperson does with or ZX with encoding
right,
the retention time in the name.
yeah.
But it means, okay, what else do you use? Do you use user property, the kind of invented for this kind of thing? And
Yes, but
but
there's
if you want to
also,
be, I guess one of the questions I have, which is an open question for me, is it should each source system have its own snapshot policy and be trusted to create snapshots and then a backup system pulling them off? And what happens if the backup system failed to pull them off? You kind of don't want to lose stuff just because the backup server is down if you don't have data loss otherwise. So do you let the backup sync handle the pruning on the source? Or do
yes.
you have two sets of snapshots, one created by the source and one by the backup server, where the backup
Well,
server does its snapshots and then by lucky accident pulls in the other snapshots or something like this, created in
yeah,
between them?
yeah. I mean, I do disposable up to the second snapshots during sync. And I do time-based ones. So it's for me it's yes and then I need a pruner that is aware
Hmm?
of what actually got replicated because I don't want to
It,
delete anything that didn't get replicated. So it's
so
how
then you have
many
the
how many matches do you keep and how many days of matches do you keep? So those are the first two things. But I also want to add stuff like a sine curve. Like there are lots of pools that just keep growing until somebody manually deletes stuff and then it drops. And then you want your pruning policy to sort of follow that curve um, behind a few days or a couple weeks. So
uh,
there's all these different types of there's all these different types of things that aren't done by just plain old date. I think there's just a lot more to it. And I want to make a
so yeah.
tool that thinks about these things.
So the reason why everyone is talking about pruning and retention policies when they discover how nice Zelta does the replication part is that that's kind of the next step. Once you have the data, you have to decide what to keep
Which
because
is
nobody, realistically speaking, who has any amount of data wants or even can afford to just keep every snapshot forever, which is kind of what Zelta used to do until the latest release.
well,
And
yeah. I mean, I think
you
that
need
I think that
third-party tools to then handle that, but you haven't documented how to interface with them and which ones play nice.
right, which
If you
is which
said
is why I'm
this is
so
the tool we
excited.
recommend until we have this feature within Zelta, would be something a user could
Well, I
be
think
happy
I
with,
think I
like use
do.
this tool to handle your snapshot creation and destruction, and
I think
just
I
use
do
Zelta for
suggest.
replication.
Yeah, I think I do suggest CFS Snap in my articles and my wiki.
Mhm.
but I think but the problem is that that's 8 years old. It hasn't been updated, and I think some of the paradigms are need uh, need modernization. So yeah, yeah. But basically, I just need to get 1.1 out so then I can release this thing that everybody wants. Um,
Yeah,
but yes, of course, you're 100% correct. I think Zelta Prune is definitely a big step in the right direction because I think it's the fact that it doesn't tell you it won't tell you anything to delete um, unless it sees that replication is going to continue. Your replication continuity is going to be able to continue, and
so
that's
one of the things which would be really nice to have because it's so annoying with things like ZX and other tools is you
that thing was a
it's
disaster.
yes I know, but it's what people use if they installed the pool in a certain time frame because for a while it
Hmm.
was the least bad thing.
Yeah,
Um, which handles some of the cases by just brute first, just force receive and so on. So yeah, you can easily get into trouble with it if you're holding it wrong,
hmm,
which is not what you want. But yeah, it allows it to resolve half of the problem cases automatically by just doing potentially dangerous stuff.
yeah,
Uh, I know, but the problem here is that sometimes you will just have stuff like, let's say you use CFS snap tool or something, and it has already destroyed your last backup because let's say you added a
right.
big
It's
pool or a big data set, you replicated it onto the system, it now gets replicated somewhere else. The replication isn't fast enough to keep up with the latest snapshot, and now you have a missing source. So you are basically in what Zelta sync or match would tell you, yeah, I'm out of sync and I can't auto sync because we don't have the latest snapshot on the destination doesn't exist in the source anymore, basically.
mhm,
So
yeah.
now you still have a common ancestor from which you could start, but you would have to roll back to that on the backup destination. So you would have to delete something so that you can start syncing to what's still there.
Well, again, Zelta already has a workaround for that. But yes, I hear what you're saying.
I mean, yes, you could rotate stuff away, but right?
But yes, you're right. It's silly to rotate something that actually
And
has the same
actually,
continuity.
you don't want the rotated array stuff preserved. If the
Right.
sync is
Exactly.
restored and
It's
finished, you want to potentially, if you have the space, want to keep the divergent history, which is now deleted at the source. So let's say forgotten history. You want to keep that around in case something happens to the source while you're replicating. But once you're back in sync, you don't want to keep that because it's already against your retention policy, probably.
right.
So if Zelta used user properties or something like that, or status files in some directory to track
Uh, well,
which
I did
thing
do.
has consumed
Uh,
which source, so that some retention mechanism doesn't delete the source for the configured or for the ever Zelda used replications. Yeah, would be nice if it could tell you, hey, warning, this, you have snapshots which are only retained because your backup servers are not replicating you.
nice. Well, I'm very much, as soon as I get this thing out the door, I'm so open to adding new fun features in addition to Zelda Rebase, which will be our, uh,
If you
just
get that
a
working.
Rotate, rebase,
package
you name it. Hmm.
or package updater.
I
Yeah, I
mean,
mean, I have that.
for
I have an
by
alpha
the way,
that's
Let him finish. He's speaking. Just one
okay,
sec, one at a time. And we may have lag or something, but Daniel, please
yeah.
try to finish a sentence.
Oh, I was gonna say that I did test the like what happens if you hammer something with too many ZFS user property rights,
Yes,
and
yes.
I'm up to I forget. I think I'm up to 100 million now.
So the system's under load and writing all those have no impact on the
Yeah.
performance of the massive load, right?
Yeah, so
Wow,
that the trick
bug
is
fixed.
the trick is that I'm not writing, I'm writing basically a series of small hints, which is what I would expect to do. So
Hmm.
property hints um and replication state hints so that for quicker sync. So there's ZFS list updates coming soon that are going to make that completely moot. Um, but yeah, in the meantime, I just wanted to find out, like I just want to have an option to have that hint in different places. And the most Zelta way to do that would be, would be a hint in the ZFS user properties, because that would that would make it perfectly portable, right? You could
Oh,
you could
yep,
delete
yep,
your
yep.
your Zelta bastion, create another Zelta bastion, it would be able to pick up where it left off.
Ah, nice.
So
Yep.
that does seem like an option, but of course I will, I'll have SQLite and other database options, API options, um, and that sort of stuff. I'm going to try to put my head together with Rob Norris and see what he says about JSON support, because right now I only have JSON support for the backup process for analytics. For like I think my a couple of years ago I was showing off how I use it with Grafana. Um, but I obviously want to have, all of the different components have a JSON outputter also, so we can, because I would love to hook this up into other projects that are out there, because there's so many cool projects with little replication tools that I think could gain from, sort of the flexibility in the UX that I'm trying to do.
Cool.
Also, it'd be fun. I'd love to love to get this little guy embedded in something. It is BSD licensed after all.
Exactly. And Hazem is looking at using the smart libxo output for building in disk health statistics into Silva. So yeah, licensing matters.
So
Yeah.
Daniel, do you want
Um,
feedback on the GitHub site, or do you want some feedback somewhere else when we test things?
Oh, so I'm actually going to turn on. I moved I just did this a couple days ago. So I moved the repo to my organization. I'm going to add a discussion board on there, so you don't have to. If it's an issue, obviously, if it looks like a bug or it's not working right, please open an issue. But I'll add a discussion board there as well. Um, that's sort of a meta question I have is, where, what would be a good chat room or something where me and my staff could be to answer questions about it as we, try to make it uh, a little bit more polished. But yeah, absolutely. You're definitely welcome to make an issue, a discussion post, whatever you want. Email me, uh, page me, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's all welcome. And by the way, I did get you sent me a message many months ago on LinkedIn, and it was an important issue, and I did solve it. um, I just happened to solve it about a year with that a year delay, and that's not going to happen again.
so for
How
Zelta rebase, Daniel, as long as it
Yeah,
happens within the same pool and block cloning is enabled, you can
I
even
I
get
know.
the files out with copy file range.
I know
And
it's not. It's like there's nothing. I thought that I was going to have to come up with something, and there's just nothing to do. Like my alpha test just works. Like I had to
free
do
of
nothing
charge?
to make it work. It was it was like, oh, which flags do I need, and how do I figure that? It's CP. It's
FreeBSD,
literally, yeah, literally just CP. And with
yes,
Linux, this is an important thing to put in the notes maybe, and we probably have put it in before, but if you use Linux, you cannot use the dash dash reflang flag if you're going beyond past uh, uh, data set boundaries. Don't do reflang auto, because otherwise it will actually either fail or force a copy rather than using the copy file range, which will work on Linux. So you actually just need to forget about reflink, and then ZFS will do the quote unquote right thing. So I experimented with that a little bit.
Is that command in ZFS or that command is in Zelta?
It's that command is in Linux copy,
Oh,
the
it's in
Linux
Linux
copy
copy. Oh,
command.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Well, that was
yeah.
door number
So
three.
CP without don't try to be smart and use the reflink command, or it will not work
Hmm.
past file system boundaries. Very important thing to
And
know.
snapshots are file systems in that regard.
Mm.
With the block cloning.
Yeah.
Cool.
You do not use reflink always, or it'll fail. Yeah, exactly.
So that's the correct syntax that Jan put in from chat? In chat?
Reflink
Yeah, but
always
that's
will
the syntax
fail.
which does
Oh,
not work.
Yeah, that'll fail. You just do regular copy and it'll work. So
got it.
it's like yeah, magic if you don't touch it.
And the no auto,
I
the auto will
just
also fail?
I don't know about that.
Okay.
Isn't
Okay.
that is it, it's just like we solved copying files take space. It's just so confusing. Like I just woke up one day and it was like, oh, that's solved now. I
Lucky
didn't realize
you.
that.
Yeah,
You can
But
have nice things.
it's actually been a decade. Like APFS does it actually, and like some other file systems do it too. But now that it's on, I mean, the way ZFS does it is amazing.
Yay.
but we may need some kind of library which makes it easy to have portable file cloning support, because on macOS you need to use the clone file system call.
Mhm.
On previously it's copy file range, but it's and then this how do I find out if it's actually just an emulation or if it's real? Because you can implement copy file range by just moving the copy loop into the kernel, which is probably not what you want if you want, but yeah, just this kind of option uh, where you can just say a kind of clone file or clone file content, because it's also a question, do you want to, I think macOS doesn't give you an option to just copy ranges. It always has to be whole files, right?
Mhm.
So yeah,
I guess that this is probably for another day. I know this call
it could
is
be
going long,
like
but
less than 1,000 lines C library to, or probably more like 200 lines with boilerplate or something.
what's the deal? What's the deal with? I mean, this is obviously tricky as heck, but
Mhm.
what's the possibility and what's the deal with block cloning via uh, zvols or parts of files, blocks that are parts of files?
I
Sparse
think
files and whatnot? Or
as long as you're aligned to the block size on a ZVol copy file range should
It's possible,
work, right?
right? Yeah. So that would be fascinating. I mean, this is probably I mean, this isn't something I would do, but this is something that would be really cool to put upstream pressure on. If we could, if something like that could happen, that would be really magical.
I mean, it would be really impressive if that functionality was accessible via iSCSI or NVM over Fabrics, right?
Mhm.
So that you could have server-side copying with block cloning semantics. Uh, Things like VMware would be very happy if they get to use that for
Yeah,
provisioning. Take this 200 gig image of a VM and with cloning semantics duplicated, right?
yeah,
I can see some one just completely losing it over things which used to take an hour suddenly taking milliseconds because stuff is no longer moving back and forth across wire. I guess we already have in FreeBSD iSCSI stack support for server-side copying between LUNs, but if the copying between LUNs was implemented with bclone, it would be even funnier.
Amazing stuff.
Other file system optimization thoughts?
Well, I mean, my wish list is block cloning needs to have ZFSN support, ZFSN, ZFS
Oh,
receive
well,
support.
yeah, that would be nice.
But
Yes, indeed.
that's, I mean, that's something. I mean, I will go find work to fund that. That would be, yeah, that would be a big deal for me, I
Well,
think.
it's not that they don't want it, but there were, reasons explained by Pavlo and company that it's just somewhat non-trivial, or they would have done it. It's not like they
Right. Yeah,
want
no,
it
no
to
doubt.
not be
No,
stinking energy.
I know that's a real money task for sure.
And so,
Um,
hmm,
yeah, I would really. My understanding is that block cloning is already flying close to the sun
Hmm.
in regards to what the ZFS data structures can express, and making it so that it is goes across replication would kind of imply rewriting the old snapshots to now do that or go through an additional layer of global indirection, which gets you back to the global DDoP table again. Or basically, your choices are for something which works across replication, from my understanding of the discussion, is either you have a global DDoP table, which is exactly how the traditional problematic DDoP works, or you need block pointer rewriting
Hmm. Well,
because
maybe
then you
there
have
could
to
be,
update the old snapshots to reference to know
maybe
that
there
there are
could
multiple
be,
copies.
maybe there could be a limited way to do it then, where if the file is copied between, um, a previous, like previous common snapshot or something like that, then I think it could be theoretically possible.
I
I
mean,
mean, theoretically.
what would be possible maybe would be to have a hint, and then you can on receive try on the backup, hey, this is where you can find this other file path into another snapshot.
Right.
Start with this, and then when you receive that, kind of do it as if it was a block clone of this if it fits, kind of, right? So that you
Hmm.
give a hint how to apply the cloning, where to clone from if you can, which is also another feature for block cloning I've asked for, but which sadly does not yet exist, and that is the ability to, from user space, try to dedup something. So if I have two files and I've computed their checksums or some ranges in a file, and I know that when I validated it, it was identical, please kernel try to punch in a dedup into this file, but only if it's truly the same, right? So right now, if I want to use copy file range to do some kind of offline dedupe locally, I can't do that because any other writer could overwrite the file between my time of check and time of use. So there needs to be
Hmm.
some kind of system call where you basically try to copy file range only if it's identical information as reported by read, basically. Doesn't
Hmm.
matter if the block sizes change or something, but or the holds, just the information you read back has to be the same. I guess the sparseness could matter, but this what I would mostly care about is if I just cut the file as is it identical?
Yeah.
Um, Afterward, so this is so that you can have a kind of, especially for jails, it would be nice if you could just do this kind of Zelta rebase on a running jail.
Yeah. The future is
Right
exciting.
now, with copy file range, you have to know that there are no other concurrent writers on the files you're processing.
Yeah, right.
Because you compare two files, you find out, yes, they're identical, but they're not cloned. So you do a copy file range. And if anyone else has done a normal write, you will undo it. So you roll back the file to the time of check. Which for some files may be fine. Oh no, you undid some whatever log file write or something. But yeah, that's potentially on a test setup not catastrophic, but it shouldn't happen. If it just happens to some, I don't know, default config file where someone added some white space to and you undid that, okay, probably harmless, but again, really nasty by design. If it happens to a running database, yeah, it's time to cry.
I've got to get out of here.
Cool. Anything
But this is
else? Last
great. Thank you.
thoughts,
Well,
inspiration, and how does one
thanks
actually
for.
test your thing? Should they do a checkout, or are there packages somewhere on this planet for 1.1 of
Yeah,
Zelta
it's a
made out?
checkout for now. I want to make sure it's really clean before I send the new port out.
Of course.
But that's I'll probably start the publishing process next week for FreeBSD port, and then packages. I don't know. I probably need some help on that.
Cool. Okay. Well, then, thank you both. Daniel, do you want the honors?
Like and subscribe.
Thank you so much. Take care.